to all of you. Welcome for the second Vinitaly Home by LLS Winebo. Today, Tuesday, our first meeting. It's always one of our great producer. And today we are in Campania and we are with Galardi Winery. We have Silvana here from the one that she will introduce the winery and we'll talk about the wine. So we are lucky today that we'll actually go, you're going to go through 5 vintages. So Silvana, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for letting us come to your winery, to your beautiful place, and just talk about us, introduce yourself, and tell us about you and your winery.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Silvana. I represent the second generation of Galardi. And I've studied tourism economics with the dream of enhancing, give value to the beautiful Campania region in which I was born and raised. And actually Galardi was born in 1991 in the Campania region, South Italy. And I've got a map here so I can show you where we are located. We actually are between Rome, city of Rome and Naples, so in northern Campania. And here we have a more detailed map where you can see the Roccamonfina volcano and Gulf of Gaeta. And Galardi was born in 1991, as I said before, at the slope of the Roccamonfina volcano in the Campania region as a game. And then given the success achieved, it became the main business activity of my family. Since the beginning, they entrusted the consultation of the winemaker Riccardo Cotarella, decided to graft only native grapes, such as Aglianico and Piedirosso, that mainly grow on volcanic soil. And for 25 years, we have produced just one wine, the Terra di Lavoro, that I'm going to show you today, which is a blend of 80% Aglianico and 20% Piedirosso. And the blend made up because Aglianico is usually considered the Nebbiolo of the South, so it's characterized by its roughness, while the Piedirosso is instead very smooth. So that's why my family decided to add a proportion of that grape into the Terra di Lavoro's blend. Actually, the first vintage that was produced was the 1994 with 500 bottles, more or less, on half hectare. And fun fact, my family they went to the first Vinitaly of Galardi with 2 vintages, 1994 and 1995. They didn't expect at all what would really happen. In fact, they've sold every single bottle from those 2 vintages and achieved a great public and critical success from all around the world. And as a proof, Parker's Wine Advocate reviewed vintage 2001 with 99 points. So it was really exciting and unexpected for a small family business like Galardi. Then in 2017, so the Galardi grew up, and we have seen the sign of a great vintage and mainly an excellent performance of Piedirosso were evident. So we decided to select a proportion of that grape and produce our second label, the Terra di Rosso. And this time, this is 100% Piedirosso. So Terra di Lavoro means land of work and is the name of the historical region of southern Italy where Galardi is located. And it corresponds roughly to the northern Campania, southern Lazio, and the upper northwest area of Molise region. And the label of Terra di Lavoro represents the ancient map of the region during the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Regarding the vineyards, those are located at the slope of the Roccamonfina volcano, 400 meters above sea level and exposed to the Gulf of Gaeta. So we typically experience temperate climate, and also it's important the temperature range from day to night that really helps the vineyards and the wine itself. Moreover, the combination of the volcanic soil together with the wind that comes from the sea and the overall environment based on chestnuts and olive trees surrounding vineyards represent a wonderful terroir in order to produce great wines. In particular, the volcanic soil confers to the wine different characteristics or peculiarities that ensure the production of high quality wines such as minerality, long persistence, and aging. The soils in our vineyards are generally a composition of ash, tuff, and pumice. So as we used to say, nature takes its course, but we also do a great job and pay a lot of attention in vineyards during the selection of grapes. And we follow as well the organic agriculture since 1997. So Galardi grew up, and we today own, since actually 2008, 10 hectares of vineyards, and we produce around 30,000 bottles per year with a small selection of large formats such as Magnum that we produce since 1999 and Double Magnum that we produce since 2002. So because we have produced one wine, Terra di Lavoro, for 25 years, we usually present it with a vertical tasting that of course today is going to be virtual. And this is really interesting because it gives the opportunity to understand the evolution of the wine year after year in the bottle. And moreover, it shows the different kind of weather condition that of course can vary from a year to another. In particular, those we are about to taste are very different from each other. Some come from very cold and rainy years, such those three, which are the 2012, 2013, and 2016, and some of them from sunny and hot years, such as the 2015 and 17. So we are going to start from the oldest one, the 2012, first of all, because tannins are less present. So we usually start from the older one. And also because the volcano influence, such as the minerality, is more pronounced in the older vintages, while younger ones remind more the fruits. So the 2012 comes from a very difficult year in terms of weather due to the frost in all Europe. So it was a really difficult vintage in terms of climate. But as I said before, we pay a lot of attention in vineyards. So we selected more carefully the grapes. So we selected the best grapes and we reduced the production. And also the volcanic soils are characterized by the draining system, and it really helps the wine. And of course, the wind that comes from the sea dry and reduce the risks of vines diseases. So this vintage immediately reminds the volcanic soil from the full body color, as well as the minerality and the long persistence at the taste. In the mouth and at the nose stand out red wild berries, and then balsamic notes of raisin and herbal notes. And tannins are a bit present in this vintage, so they give the time for the wine to evolve for many years, shall we say. Then if we go to the 2013, this time the rain was the protagonist. So it wasn't really that good for us, but our grapes developed a good resistance to climate change. And so they reached a remarkable level of maturity during the summer. This vintage in particular is characterized by an enveloping aroma of red berries and a delicate hint of fresh and balsamic underbrush. And in the mouth, you can feel the richness of this wine. Tannins are a bit present, but not that aggressive. And we can't be missing the minerality and the long persistence, which are the backbones of the Terra di Lavoro. Then we go to the 2015, which was a year full of heat and low rain, finally. So a great weather for the production of wine. This vintage has a quite dense, compact, and almost impenetrable color, just violet on the nail. And the aroma is the classic one from the Terra di Lavoro. So first of all, the damp earth, then cherry plum and graphite. And then the nose is filled with balsamic notes of eucalyptus and then black pepper. In the mouth, the sensation is always of a pulpy and rich wine. This one has a great balance between tannins and acidity. And it's, despite its youth, it's a wine with a great potential in aging. Of course, those two where the weather was hotter, sunniest, so they have a great potential in aging. Then we go back to a not that good vintage in terms of weather, the 2016. This year was characterized by the cold and the rain, but in the end, the white paid off. The color is really dark and intense and remained bright and vivid. At the nose, first of all, stand out the freshness, the balsamic notes, and then the fruit, such as the red wild berries, and then hints of white pepper and green tea. And then in the mouth you get pulpy sensation of black cherry, raspberry and blackberry. So you get more of the fruits. It has a really good persistence, so for us was a winning shot, even if the weather was not that great. Then we go further to the 2017, which was one of the most beautiful harvests in the history of Galardi. And the proof of this great vintage was the birth of our second label, the Terra di Lavoro. And the richness and the complexity of this wine were surprising even for us. The color is an intense ruby, almost impenetrable. At the nose, you can feel roses petal and geranium, and then the balsamic note and smoky sensation of black pepper. In the mouth stand out elegant tannins and a pleasant acidity in terms of taste, fresh jasmine first, and then red white berries. And in the end, a spicy note of leather, coffee, and almost licorice. This vintage was really important for us, for the weather, of course. For the first time for many, many years, after many, many years, we have harvest in September. While the others are always an harvest of half October. So that makes us really happy. And if you're interested, we recommend pairing this wine with roasters of red meat or seasoned cheese. So that's it. If you have any questions.
Yes, well, that was very nice. Thank you for all the explanation of each vintage. I do have a question. So since the beginning until now, all these vintage, did you always in the wine keep the same same technique? Did you change anything? Is anything that changed from the beginning to the end? My question is that because obviously we know that the weather affect the way that the wine will result, as you were mentioning in the different years, but except the Mother Nature factor, is anything else that you guys did in the winery since the beginning to now that maybe changed a little bit the Terra di Lavoro style or adjust the
For those vintages, was the work was the same in terms of machinery or other things, but what we change in terms of the weather that can vary a year from another is the work in vineyards. So we select more carefully the grapes, we pay more attention in that way.
So between the Aglianico and the Piedi Rosso, are their harvest is pretty much the same time, or one ripes earlier than other?
No, we usually do it like for 2 or 3 days. So it depends from the maturity level of the grapes, but usually at the same days, the harvest is the same day.
And are you, I'm just curious because I know that Aglianico is one of the probably latest ripening grape in Italy. I was just wondering, how do you, how many days in your wine property it takes you guys to do the harvest? In just a few days, or it's quite a process?
It depends. Sometimes we just get 3 days straight away. So we do it like, we organize ourselves in that way with our workers. So like 2 or 3 days. And sometimes so we will get like 1 week for 2 days, and then the week after for other 2 days or 1 day. It depends on the level of maturity, of course.
I asked the question because when I was in Italy in college, I used to do le vendemmie to pay my college tuition. And I remember we were waiting every morning if they will call you, if the winery will call you to go to harvest or not, depending on the weather. So one question just came through our group with Patrizia. They're asking, when do you blend the two grapes? Do you do a separate fermentation and you do the blending, or you do the fermentation together of the two? Together since the beginning. Yeah. So the two grapes are together since the beginning.
No, since the beginning. The one thing that changed, but it changed like the year after the birth of the Galardi, was that we initially started with the Guyot system and then changed with the Spurprum Condon. So it didn't really change that much since the beginning.
We have a questions, two questions actually. Today I'm going to combine about green practice. So you say if you guys are certified organic, and also some of our colleagues, we know that Galardi is not adding sulfites to the bottlings, given to the growth of the ever controversial category, natural wine, non-natural wine. We were wondering if you could confirm the fact that the philosophy is regarding farming, fermentation, and sulfites addition overall. So where are you guys standing as the green farming in your winery?
So we follow the organic agriculture. That doesn't mean that the wine is biological, is natural, but the grapes are. So we pay a lot of attention in terms of environment in the vineyards, and the terroir helps us a lot. As I said before, the nature helps really that much. But the wine is not natural, is not biological. The grapes are biological. So we follow the organic agriculture in that way.
Another question that I usually, when I present this wine and talk with the buyers, obviously these are Ianico. It's very, we are in Campania, and as you know, Campania also is famous for the Taurasi wines made with the Ianico. If you have to tell us, if you have to explain to a buyer what is the main difference, or what kind of difference you can find in your Ianico, in your Terra di Lavoro, and in general in the Taurasi wines, what you will say, how you will explain the differences between those two wines from the same region, mostly with the same grape, but quite different.
I would say, in my personal opinion, Ianico is characterized by roughness, but that's not really simple questions, but just because the terroir, the soil of every single vineyard can change. It can change from 400 meters above the sea, 200 meters above the sea. So every single wine, every single vineyard has its own peculiarities, characteristics. So it's not that easy saying that our wine or Ianico is different from Taurasi because of that, but there are so many things that can change from a region, a small part of that region, like in this case, Terra di Lavoro, Caserta, etc. So I would say that so many things it depends from so many things. But Ianico is usually really characterized by the roughness, so it's really strong in that way.
It is. Well, this is that was a thank you for all these answers. There is so you were saying about pairing before, and I heard your pairing, and I agree with you. But now I'm going. As I mentioned to you before, I was born in Napoli, in Secondigliano. So I am, I have a very big Napolitan food culture. If you had to dig into the typical traditional Napolitan cuisine, and maybe that's not familiar to United States, the market, but which really dish makes you feel home with the Galardi? Like something that can be even simple, something simple that your family used to make. Which dish makes you feel really home with the Galardi? Typical from the Campania Napolitan cuisine.
I think meat in general, because I used to come here during the summer or holiday season. So we eat a lot during holidays. So here we eat a lot of meat. So roasts of red meat are a classic dish of my childhood. Can I say that?
Yeah, of course. Well, we had another question now about do you guys have any whites in the wine? Did you grow any white grapes at all, or just Aglianico Piedirosso?
Aglianico and Piedirosso.
Only red. Vino Rosso, all red.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if we don't have any more questions, looks like that was it about the questions for the. So one more question for me, a person. So you say 17 was a spectacular vintage, was the born of the Terra di Rosso. There's any vintage in particular that is close to your heart, is dear to your heart for some, maybe not because of the great, especially the wine, but because there's some special moment related to the vintage. Maybe the first year that you really start getting involved with the winery, which vintage it's close to Silvana's heart?
Maybe 15 and 16, just because when I started, I used to do tasting in the cellar. So maybe those two that I started with.
Okay, perfect. Well, Silvana, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. I mean, I speak personally, been with the company for 10 years, and I knew Galardi Terra di Lavoro before I started with the Winebo. It's a great wine. We are very proud to represent it, this wine, and we are looking forward for the new Terra di Rosso as soon as we're gonna have and bring it to the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I hope to see you soon in Italy, or when you're gonna come to visit the market, okay?
Hopefully soon.
Yes. Ciao, grazie Silvana.
Thank you. Ciao, grazie
Ciao,
mille.
ciao.